Okay. So you all got the message. So just so you know, we are recording this for your future reference today. And the Nonprofit Network of Southwest Washington would like to thank you for registering and joining today. We have a great audience, and we have a fabulous topic, which I know you're all interested in. The Liquor and Cannabis Board and the Gambling Commission to let you know what you should or shouldn't be doing at your events coming up. We have a lot of events coming up. So how we're going to do this today is I'm going to have the presenters both do their presentations. As you're listening, if you have questions, put them in the chat room, but I think I want to save all the questions till the end so we don't interrupt their presentations. So we will be monitoring that and reading the questions back at the end of the presentation. So we're going to start with Kaylin and Beth from the Liquor and Cannabis Board. And I think they have a presentation that they will also share. And then I believe, Beth, if I'm right, you're going to share that PowerPoint with us that we'll also be able to send out.
Correct. I'm having problems with my video. It keeps freezing, so I'm going to go off camera. But yes, we will have that available. I'll go ahead and send it to you after the presentation. And then you can share.
Okay, great. We'll let you go ahead and get started.
All right, thank you all for coming. Sorry, I'm not able to share my video. We don't use Zoom very much at the States, so I'm not quite sure why I'm having problems with the video, but I apologize. So we are here today. We've been asked to come today to talk about creating a successful festival or community celebration. We want to talk about how to have alcohol at public gatherings or your galas. How to apply for a special occasion license and what those are all about, the timelines as far as how long it takes to get a special occasion license or whatever kind of permit or license that you need. We're going to talk about commingling alcohol and minors at outdoor events. We are going to talk about how to bring alcohol into your event and working with promoters and manufacturers and distributors. We're going to talk just very little about working with caterers and even less about cannabis. So we'll go ahead and get started. And we always want to start with, we go to the next one. We always want to start with the fact that there are two ways to have, can you go back to the second one? Sorry, guys. There's always two ways to have alcohol at an event in the state of Washington. Either a nonprofit can get a special occasion license, apply for the license themselves, and sell the alcohol themselves, or a nonprofit who is putting on an event can hire a caterer, and that means a caterer with a liquor license to do the alcohol for the event. But you'll see here that the common denominator is a nonprofit. So a nonprofit has to be involved in one way or the other. Either the nonprofit's putting the event on and they hire the caterer, or a nonprofit is the one that applies for the liquor license and sells the alcohol. So when a nonprofit is asked to do an event that's open to the public, there's two ways that that's done. The nonprofit, like we talked about, gets a special occasion license and they're putting the entire event on, which means that you as a nonprofit are paying for the overhead, you're paying for the insurance, you're doing the hiring, you're the one selling the tickets for the event. Then that ticket could possibly include alcohol or not. Or somebody asks you as a nonprofit to possibly sell the alcohol at an event that's open to the public. So we all know that there's promoters out there, and a promoter may want to put on an event, but we don't give liquor licenses to promoters. So they will reach out to nonprofits quite often and ask the nonprofit to be the one to do the alcohol for the event. And when you're approached by a promoter to do the alcohol for the event, that's fine as long as you understand a couple of things, that your you're only going to sell alcohol in a secluded beer garden type situation area. If somebody else is putting an event on, then you're not going to sell alcohol out into the rest of the event. It's almost like you have your own little license premise at that event when a promoter hires you. And you're going to not have any undue influence from that promoter as far as what alcohol that you carry in those instances. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So again, a nonprofit can either put on their own event, or a nonprofit can be asked to do a beer garden or handle the alcohol at an event that's being put on by somebody else. Okay. So the special occasion license is the only license that you can get to sell alcohol at an event that's open to the public. And that can be a gala, that can be a festival, it can be like Seafair, Taste of Tacoma, Bite of Seattle, Lake Fair. It can be like a dinner and an auction. There are many different, there's wine walks, of course, wine tastings, other kinds of tastings, of course, all different alcohol, we have them all. However, the only people that can apply for this license are registered nonprofit organizations. And when we say registered, we mean either that you're a nonprofit out of Washington State, and we expect you to be registered with the Secretary of State, or you can be registered with the IRS. And out-of-state nonprofits are allowed to get these licenses, but they have to be registered with the IRS and show us that proof, give us their number in order for us to look them up to make sure that they are registered. So it can be either an IRS registration or a Secretary of State, but it must show that you are a valid nonprofit and that you're up to date with your registration. It allows a nonprofit to sell alcohol at 12 times per year. And so if you have a weekend event and you want to sell alcohol maybe in different ways on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, that's 3 of your 12 days that would be included in that. We talked about different types of events, fundraising, galas, wine tasting, wine walks. The nonprofit must be organized and operated for a charitable, religious, social, political, civic, fraternal. There's many different reasons, but they have to be organized and operated under either, as I said, the Secretary of State or the IRS. If you are a 501c3 or a 501c6, you can go to the next slide. We do talk about the differences as far as donations and why they're different than regular registered nonprofits, and we'll get into that in a little while. The cost of the special occasion is $60 per day per location. So we want to explain this because people get confused with this terminology. When you have an event in a single room and you have, say you're doing a wine tasting and you bring 10 wineries in and they're all in a room, they all have their different tables, but they're all in one room, we consider that one location. But if you're having an event in, say, a facility or a venue that has 3 different rooms and you want to do it in one activity in one room and another activity in another room, and something else in a separate room, then you're paying for 3 different locations in that situation. Or if you're maybe serving inside and selling outside as well, that again is 2 different locations to us. So keep that in mind when you're applying for the special occasion license, that you understand that if it's separated by walls in different areas, they consider that different locations. Our applications right now are available on our website. We are in the process of upgrading our systems, and we hope in the next 16 months that you'll be able to apply online and get your license online. Our fingers are crossed. I hate to say this, but this is our 3rd bout with a modernization project. So we're farther than we've ever been. So that's a good thing, but you'll be able to pay online. So it'll be really nice and a lot little bit more simplified for folks, hopefully. We're hoping, but the process is still going to be required 45 days ahead of time. We do require 60 days for certain applications that we'll talk about in a few minutes, but we do need those applications 45 days prior to your event, and we will still need them when we change the system. But now, especially since I have to go in snail mail, we say 45 days prior to the event, but you really need to mail them to us even sooner than that, because it takes a few days for them to get into our hands. So the reason we have to have these applications so far in advance is because of local authority requirement. Per RCW 6624-010, we have to by law send a notice to the city or county that you're holding your event in, and we have to ask permission that for you to sell alcohol. We have to do this for every restaurant, grocery store, anybody who applies for a liquor license, and the special occasion is no different because you're selling alcohol to the public. So we have to get that okay from the city or county that you're holding the event in. We don't have to have, if you're in the city limits, you don't have to get both the city and the county. Only if you're out of a city limits and having your event just in the county do we need the county approval. Unless you are having your event at a fairgrounds that is a county fairgrounds within a city limits. And in that case, we do need both. It does happen probably about 20, 30 times a year. So just make sure that you check your application. So the local authority has 20 days to respond to approve or reject the application. So if we get your application in a timely manner, we send it off to the local authority. The local authority says that they want more time to look at your event and what you're doing and may request another 20 days. And they can. Unfortunately, that may put you over your event date. And if that were to happen, then we would reach out to you and have you reach out to the local authority and have that conversation. But if you get approached by somebody to do an event and you have, say, 30 days till your event or 20 days till your event, and you know that you're supposed to give us at least 45 days, there's something called a letter of non-objection that we will require you to go and go and get yourself. And that would be from the city or county that you're having the event in, and you would ask them to write you a letter of non-objection that basically has everything that we would ask them to sign off on the notice that we would send to them if we had the application in a timely manner. But if we don't have that application in a timely manner, we request that you get a letter on their letterhead stating that they have no objection to, say, the Pierce County Humane Society having an event on March 30th at 7 p.m. at Point Defiant Zoo, as an example. And that would be in lieu of that 20-day period that we send that local authority out. Let me be clear, though. We don't want you to get a letter of non-objection if you apply in a timely manner. That's only in a last-minute situation. Otherwise, we request that you do not go in and ask for that letter of non-objection. If you have the time to apply, then please apply so that we may go through our processes as we normally do. So some applications we are going to ask for 60 days in advance, and these are for the all ages applications. And this is for events that you want minors to commingle with alcohol, but not every event. So if your event is indoors, we do not want you to apply for this all ages addendum. We're going to only ask that you fill out this all ages addendum and apply 60 days prior to your event, at the least 60 days prior to your event, if you are asking for alcohol and minors to commingle outdoors only. So traditionally, a special occasion license allows you to have an outdoor event. That's absolutely fine to have under the special occasion license, but you must have a beer garden that's 21 and over only. And so if you want to try to add minors to your event, you can fill out this all ages addendum, get it to us at least 60 days in advance, and we will look at it. We will not, all because you fill it out does not mean we will approve it. There are certain criteria that isn't required with a normal special occasion that we expect to be met with the all ages addendum and the questions that we ask you. And if they aren't met, we won't approve it, and you will have to have alcohol in a segregated beer garden area where minors can't come in and alcohol can't go out. Some of that criteria that we look for, I'm happy to share with you, is something for kids to do other than watching people consume alcohol. So if you want to have a beer garden at your event and you want to just allow kids to be able to come in with their parents so that parents aren't separating from their kids, we're going to ask that you have a coloring station or something for the kids to do in that area. And they're not just sitting with their parents watching them drink. So we're going to ask that you have something for the kids to do, that you have food available in that area, that there's more security. We may ask that that you have people who are mass trained that are in that area. So those are just things to consider that we will ask for if you do ask for this exception to the rule. So again, I can't stress enough that you will want to apply more than 60 days in advance, and you're going to really want to take a look at that addendum that you're asked to fill out with the special occasion application and make sure that you're able to meet all that criteria that we ask for. So when you go to get alcohol to have at your event, to sell at your event, you are going to be buying that alcohol from a licensed distributor. You're going to buy it from a manufacturer, and that means the winery, brewery, or distillery that makes that product. Or unlike a regular grocery store licensee or a restaurant licensee, you're able to go buy from a retailer. Which means that you can, if you want to, you can go buy your alcohol from Costco, Bevmo, Total Wine and More. But you need to remember that they are retailers. They are not wholesalers. So they can't sell to you at wholesale. And understand that a special occasion license is just that. It's a license. It's not a permit. It's a license, which means that you as a licensee, the nonprofit as a licensee, you buy it wholesale and you sell it retail. So if you're buying from a distributor or a manufacturer with your special occasion license, you are buying it wholesale at a lower cost. And then you make more money when you sell it to the attendees for your event. If you buy from a retailer, you're buying it retail and then you're selling at retail, which of course your markup isn't going to be as much as it would be if you were buying from a distributor or a manufacturer. So just understand that you can make more money off the sale of alcohol, the cheaper you get it for, right? So that takes us to donations of alcohol and how I brought up the 501c3 and the 501c6s earlier. So any nonprofit, as long as you're registered, can get a special occasion license, but only 501c3s or 6s can actually get alcohol donated to them. And then the only source that can donate to you are the actual manufacturers of the alcohol, the winery, brewery, distillery. And there's only one distributor that can donate to a nonprofit organization who's a 501c3 or 6, and that would be a spirits distributor. A beer and wine distributor cannot donate to you as a nonprofit. A winery or brewery can donate directly to you, but a wine or beer distributor may not donate to you. Only a spirits distributor. And the only reason a spirits distributor can donate to you is because when we privatized in this state, back when 1183 passed and the liquor stores went away, that was added to the bill that spirit distributors would be allowed to donate to nonprofits in the state of Washington on behalf of people who weren't basically manufacturers that weren't located within the state of Washington. So it's a plus for nonprofits because it gives you the ability to say, reached out to Tito's Vodka and ask them to donate to you. And they're not located in Washington, but they're able to donate through a distributor. So you can get it donated through a spirits distributor, a winery, brewery, or distillery, or you can get it donated to you from a member of your nonprofit. You cannot get alcohol donated to you by a citizen that is not part of your nonprofit, and you cannot get alcohol donated to you by another retailer. So you, again, are a retailer. So you are you follow the same laws and rules as every as every restaurant, bar, grocery store when it comes to when you can sell alcohol, what do you have to sell alcohol for? You buy it wholesale, you sell at retail. You can't overserve people. All the same laws apply across the board. You, as we just talked about, can get that alcohol donated to you from a distributor or manufacturer who are not retailers. A retailer can donate money to you, but they cannot donate alcohol to you. So remember that we are still a 3-tier state. So the top tier are your manufacturers, your wineries, your breweries, your distilleries. Your middle tier is your distributor. So the manufacturer sells to the distributor, and the distributor sells to the bottom tier, who are the retailers, and the special occasion licensee is a retailer. So you, as a retailer, like a grocery store, a restaurant, or a bar, can buy it wholesale, sell it retail. The only difference is grocery stores, restaurants, they can't get alcohol donated. So that's the benefit of being a nonprofit and being able to hold the special occasion license, is you can get it donated to you, but you still have to sell that donated product with a special occasion license and at retail cost. So you have to still be invoiced from whoever's donating it to you. You still have to have an invoice that shows what that wholesale cost is. And then you have to base what you're selling the alcohol for based on what that wholesale cost is in order to figure out what that retail cost is that you're going to sell the alcohol for. The proceeds from the sale of alcohol must go, 100% of them must go back to the nonprofit organization. So this doesn't mean that you can't pay the overhead with the proceeds from your event. It just means that 100% of the proceeds from the sale of liquor must go back to your account, and then you can parcel that out in checks to whoever you have to pay to do the event. You cannot give a percentage of your alcohol sales to anybody. That would be illegal. Again, 100%. And when you get the special occasion license and you sign the application, you're signing that you understand that 100% of those proceeds go directly back into the nonprofit organization account. And then you can pay out what you need to. Except for, again, I can't stress it enough, it cannot be a percentage of your alcohol sales. So you can't have an agreement with a promoter who brings you in to say that they get 5% of the alcohol sales, since they're bringing you in to sell alcohol at an event. That would be illegal. You can give them a flat fee, but you cannot give them a percentage. The proceeds of your event may not be paid directly or indirectly to members, officers, or trustees, board members of the organization, and you cannot compensate your members, officers, or trustees for services they perform at over the prevailing market rate. And you might think this is kind of a funny thing to say, but we've actually had instances where we've gone back and audited books on special occasion events, and we'll find that a board member was paid $1,000 an hour to bartend at an event, and that's not okay. So that's why we put that sentence in there, and we have to say it in every presentation I give. So alcohol at the event, you may not advertise or sell alcohol below cost. So like I was saying earlier, you have to get what, even if you get it donated to you, you have to know what that wholesale cost is, and you have to sell it above that wholesale cost. You may not make awards or gifts of alcohol, which means that you cannot do a raffle or a door prize at a public event and have alcohol be the prize. That is actually prohibited by law. If the event is being held at a liquor license location, say at a hotel, maybe in a ballroom, or maybe you're having it at a venue that doesn't have a liquor license and you bring in a caterer, to do something. The licensee at that location that you're holding the event in, if you have a special occasion license, or the caterer that you're working with, if you have a special occasion license, cannot bring their alcohol or sell their alcohol to your attendees. It's only one license. A lot of people call this stacking licenses, and we don't really use that terminology, but it seems to make sense for a lot of people. So we don't allow stacking of licenses. You can't have a special occasion license and a banquet permit at the same event. You can't have a hotel liquor license and a caterer's license at the same event. You can't have a special occasion and a hotel liquor license at the same event. You can have an event with a special occasion license at a hotel as long as you're in a separate banquet room and the hotel doesn't have their alcohol in there. That's perfectly fine. They can still sell alcohol in the rest of their venue. Or if you have it at a restaurant and you're holding your event in a separate banquet room or in a separate part of the restaurant and they still want to be open for regular sales in the rest of the restaurant, that's perfectly fine. But your people attending your event can't go get a drink at their bar and bring it back to your event. The alcohol cannot commingle. Next slide. Yeah. So when you sell at these events, you can sell by the individual serving, and I'm sorry. So let me rephrase that. When you have a special occasion license and you're doing an event where you're selling for on-premise consumption, then you are serving by the individual serving, beer and spirits. You may sell wine by the bottle. That's the only thing that you can sell other than an individual serving. So wine you can sell by the bottle or the glass. Spirits and beer you must sell by the glass only. You can sell the alcohol with your special occasion license in you can include alcohol in a ticket to get into the event if you're selling the tickets, or you can set up a cash bar at your event, or you can do both. So if you were having a gala and you wanted to include 2 glasses of wine with dinner and you sell a ticket that includes 2 glasses of wine, that's great. When folks get to the event, you can give them 2 tickets or something to exchange for those 2 glasses of wine. And then say somebody isn't showing any signs of intoxication, they want more after those 2 glasses, you can sell them more as long as you're working under that special occasion license and you're selling all the alcohol. So you can set up a cash bar, you can sell alcohol in a ticket price. You, however, cannot sell alcohol in a ticket price and say it's unlimited alcohol or unlimited taste or samples. So if you're holding a tasting event, you could sell a ticket that includes those tastes, those samples, but it could never say unlimited and it can never be advertised for below wholesale cost. So if you're including alcohol in a ticket, we expect you to be specific to how much alcohol that is. This ticket includes 2 glasses of wine. You cannot say this ticket includes 2 free glasses of wine. Again, you cannot advertise alcohol for free or below cost. And when you advertise alcohol for free, that's obviously below cost. So you cannot do that. You should be specific to what they're getting in that ticket. And then always remember that sometimes we ask for a breakdown of your ticket. So if you're selling a ticket to a gala for $20 and you say that that includes 2 drink tickets, and an enforcement officer happens to come to your event, a liquor enforcement officer, and they're just kind of standing back watching things, and they see somebody approach the bar 4 or 5 times, they seem intoxicated, they may ask whoever's in charge at the event for a breakdown of the ticket to see how much alcohol each person was allotted and why that person had gone to the bar 4 or 5 times if they only had 2 tickets that they paid for, because then obviously that person isn't paying cost, wholesale cost or above for the alcohol if they keep going back for free. So the officer has the right to ask for that breakdown of the ticket. They ask for, they have the right to come to your event at all because it is a liquor licensed event. So you never want to tell them that they're not welcome. And then remember that all the alcohol must be owned by the nonprofit. So if you're doing a sampling or tasting component at your event, which a lot of people seem to do lately these days, it seems like about 1/4 to 1/3 of our events are sampling or judging or tasting of alcohol events. Remember that our manufacturers do not have traveling licenses. So all the alcohol must be owned by the nonprofit. So the nonprofit has to own the alcohol. The manufacturers can come and be invited to pour and educate about their products. That's perfectly fine. Wineries and distilleries are able to pour at any event that is licensed by a nonprofit with a special occasion license. You can ask them to come and pour at any event. Unfortunately, breweries are not allowed to. A brewery can only pour at one of your events under a special occasion license only if there are 3 breweries or more, and only if it's a tasting or a sampling or judging event. And this isn't something that the liquor board just decided to pull out of their pocket and do. This is something that the Brewers Guild actually lobbied for. They don't want to give away free labor. The wineries and distilleries are more apt to do that. So breweries, again, cannot pour at your event unless there's 3 or more of them there, and it's deemed a sampling or judging, a alcohol judged event. And no, it can't be 2 wineries and 1 brewery. It's got to be 3 breweries, 3 or more breweries. Breweries can still come to your event. If you don't have 3 of them there, they can still come to the event and they can talk about their product. You would just have to have a volunteer or somebody else pour the product. And then a lot of nonprofits do sampling events. About 8 years ago, a group of nonprofits petitioned our board and asked if there was a way that we could work with them as far as changing the rule to allow nonprofits to pay for the alcohol directly after the event and not before the special occasion event. And what was decided upon is that if you're having a tasting or judging event and you want to coordinate with the manufacturers to bring a certain amount of alcohol to the event, when they get to the event, they are going to hand you the invoice. They're going to bring, say, let's use a winery, for example. You contract with a bunch of wineries to do a wine tasting. You make an agreement with each of them that they're going to bring 3 cases of wine. Come to your event, they hand you the invoice. They bring their 3 cases, they go to their little booth, they set it up, they pour. You sell tokens to the people coming in, or maybe script tickets or something for people coming into the event. Say you sell 15 tickets for $40 or whatever it is. People go and exchange their tickets for the wine at the end of the event. You go back to those tables and the winery says, well, we only opened 2 cases. We actually didn't open a 3rd case. You can have them take that 3rd case off the invoice, and you can pay them for what they actually opened and not what they brought. So you're not saddled with a bunch of leftover alcohol. So we've allowed this, and it's worked great for nonprofits. You just got to remember that you have to pay them that day. You cannot pay them the next day. You cannot pay them the next week. It's got to be at the same day as the event. If you're getting alcohol donated instead of paying it because you're a 501c3 or 6, that's fine as well, as long as that invoice is still showing what the wholesale cost is and showing a 0 amount on the bottom, and what was actually donated to you still gets adjusted. And just make sure that you are not paying the manufacturers per token or ticket, because that is actually prohibited in WAC. You have to pay them for what was opened and not for how many tickets they've collected. So if they opened 2 cases and opened a 3rd case and opened a half a bottle, you don't need to pay for that 3rd case, but you do have to pay for the bottle that half was open and half was used. Even if 2 ounces was used out of it, as long as it was open, then the nonprofit is responsible paying for that bottle. And you would need to adjust the invoice. And then off-premise sales. So as long as you are doing on-premise sales, so if you're doing a sampling or judging tasting event, say, and you want to offer people those the wine that they really liked, they'd like to buy a bottle and take it home, you can set up a bottle shop also at your tasting, and you can sell those bottles as long as they're manufactured sealed bottles for those people to take home with them. You as the nonprofit can sell them. Again, remember, the manufacturers don't have licenses that travel. So it's all done under the special occasion license. You buy the alcohol from them or get it donated, and then you sell it, and you sell it to go. As long as you're selling it for on-premise, you can sell it for off-premise. And this is actually for spirits, beer, and wine. And that was also written in when we privatized with 1183. It was written in that special occasion licensees would be able to sell manufactured sealed bottles of spirits. And so you're able to do that as well, as long as you are selling those spirits for on-premise. Off-premise sales and live auctions, as I just said, have to be in conjunction with on-premise sales. So if you want to sell it for off-premise, you got to sell it for on-premise, whether it's in a sample or you're selling it by the glass. If you're auctioning alcohol under a special occasion license, it cannot be consumed at the event. If you're selling to go, these bottles to go, they cannot be consumed at the event. People need to take them home. If you want to sell bottles of wine for on-premise consumption, you're selling them for on-premise consumption in a separate area. Silent auctions do not require on-premise sales, but do require a special occasion license. So this means that if you're at an event and you want to do a silent auction, you need to make sure that you don't, so silent auctions are done by a lot of nonprofits that don't want to handle the on-premise alcohol sales themselves. So say I go to a restaurant and I want them to do the alcohol sales, and I don't want to worry about getting the insurance and buying the alcohol, but I did get some alcohol donated and I want to be able to sell that to make some money for my charity. I still have to get a special occasion license, and I actually think I talk about this in another slide, so I apologize. But I do get a special occasion license, and I can have a silent auction at my event as long as it's silent. I can have an auction at an event where the venue is selling alcohol to my attendees. So no, nothing's being called out. It's all people walking up and writing down on a piece of paper what the next bid is, type of thing, but not a live auction. It can only be a silent auction if you're going to be having somebody else handle the on-premise alcohol sales. And then I'm going to go pretty quickly through these, working with promoters. So when you're working with promoters, you need to remember that they are an extension of you, and in a way that they're not an extension of you, because there's certain things that promoters can't do that a nonprofit can do. But what I really want to make sure that you guys understand is a promoter can never buy your license. And we've had issues with this several times in the past, where we have promoters and planners reach out to our nonprofits in the state and say, we'll give you $2,000 right up front. All you have to do is fill out the special occasion license. We're going to be selling alcohol on your behalf. You don't even need to be at this event. You don't need to do anything except for apply for the special occasion license. That's not okay. You do have to be at the event. You do have to pay for the alcohol yourself. You do have to be the one that hires somebody to sell the alcohol for your benefit on your behalf, or your volunteers are going to sell the alcohol on your behalf. Never allow somebody to talk you into filling out a special occasion license for a set amount of money. Promoters, when you're putting an event on and you hire a promoter to help you with the event, they're considered an employee of the nonprofit, and you're responsible for anything that that promoter does if you hire them. And then remember that if you sell a ticket to your event that includes any alcohol whatsoever, whether that's a community festival that maybe has a tasting component to it, and maybe there's token tickets that you're selling in the ticket, or a gala that includes a couple glasses of wine, remember that you have to be the one, the nonprofit has to be the one selling the ticket if it includes alcohol. If a promoter sells the ticket to an event that you're doing the alcohol at, it cannot include any alcohol. It has to be completely separate from your alcohol sales. Alcohol distributors and manufacturers may not give funds directly or indirectly to a special occasion licensee or their employees. So that means that you or a promoter cannot get money directly from, let me just use an example. So Corona can't come to me and say, here's $5,000 towards your event. You can do whatever you want with it. Just make sure that you carry Corona in your beer garden. That's illegal. That's what we consider undue influence. Promoters and event planners may not accept sponsorship dollars on behalf of the special occasion licensee. And they may not accept any alcohol on behalf of a nonprofit organization. The nonprofit organization needs to be the one that's organizing all the alcohol and organizing any donations of alcohol that they're receiving. So when you're working with manufacturers, the can-dos is that they can accept returns from you. If they don't use all of, like we talked about in a tasting type situation, if they don't use all the product, they can return, but they don't have to. So make sure that you have that conversation with them beforehand, that they're willing to take back product that you're not using, or that they didn't have to open, so that you're not stuck with it. You also can, like we talked about, may accept payment for the product, or you may pay for the product directly after the event. You don't have to pay for it up front, but it has to be at the event, like we talked about. Manufacturers may pay you booth fees. So that means if you're having a tasting event and you want to bring in 12 wineries to showcase their wine, and you want to charge them $200 a table to come in, you as a nonprofit organization are welcome to do that, but you can't charge one of them $200 and the other one $2,000. It needs to be fair and consistent across the line. Again, manufacturers may provide product education at the event. However, they must have an agent's license. If a distributor, brewery, distillery, or a certificate of approval or winery indirect employees all must have agent license. This isn't something that you necessarily have to worry about. But a COA is an out-of-state winery or brewery. If you ever want to carry their product, that's what that means. But if you want them to come to your event and pour product and do education, they are fully aware what they need in order to be at your event. So they would get that agent's license themselves. And then as a nonprofit, you're allowed to accept some branded promotional items of nominal value from manufacturers and distributors. This means that if Corona comes to me and says, hey, you're a nonprofit, I have a bunch of keychains and some t-shirts and some visors and some hats and stuff for you, they can donate that to you. But understand that only you and your volunteers who are working that event can use those branded promotional items. You cannot give that stuff away to your attendees. The only time that you can give away free or give away branded promotional items is if they are not free, is if you pay for them. So if you pay fair market value from the manufacturer, so you buy a bunch of Corona t-shirts and coasters and keychains from Corona, then you can hand them out to the attendees of your event. But you cannot give those away to people unless you pay for them. Otherwise, you can get them for free as long as they're of nominal value, but your staff are the only ones that can utilize those things. Cannots for manufacturers and distributors. Again, we're talking about wineries, breweries, distilleries, and distributors you buy from at wholesale. The manufacturers, like we said, can come pour at your events, but they cannot drink during your events. They cannot take a sample along with your attendees. That's not okay. That's like drinking on the job. They may not have branding name rights to any beer garden. So again, like we talked about, they can't call it the Corona Beer Garden because Corona gave you $5,000 for your event. And they can never sell directly to the public. We've talked about this several times already. Remember that product, you own that product. It's being sold under a special occasion license. You can, for free, get draft beer dispensing equipment, jockey boxes, taps, kegs. You can get that for free from a manufacturer or a distributor. You can get advertising paid for, but not to you. Again, no money can go from an alcohol industry member directly to you. You're a retailer. We consider that undue influence. However, they can pay, say, a radio station to advertise your event for you. We've already talked about wineries and distilleries may pour at a special occasion event, but breweries may only pour if there's 3 or more there. And distributors may never pour at any event whatsoever. They can never pour to the public. Next one. So we talked about auctions, and I saw in the chat that a couple questions came up about auctions a little bit. And so I want to go over this a little bit more in depth. Live auctions and silent auctions all must be in person now. So I don't know how many of you are aware that we allowed online silent auctions during COVID, during the pandemic, and they have been prohibited since last September now. So you cannot do any more online silent auctions. They have to be in person again. So a nonprofit still gets a special occasion license from us in order to do an auction that includes alcohol. If it doesn't include alcohol and you're having this at an event, it doesn't matter to us. You can do whatever you want. But if it includes alcohol, whether that's alcohol in a gift basket or alcohol just by the bottle, you have to have a license to sell alcohol. We consider auctions a sale of alcohol. You're exchanging alcohol for money. So as I already said, every auction must take place at an in-person event now. The alcohol that's going to be auctioned must be owned by the nonprofit. And so you can get it donated to you, as most people do when they auction alcohol, but you must be a 501c3 or 6, and you must have that special occasion license. Live auctions can take place while alcohol is being consumed as long as the nonprofit has a special occasion license for the on-premise sales. So live auctions where alcohol is being called out. I've got a wine basket here with 6 bottles of wine and cookies and 2 gift certificates for your favorite restaurant. That's a live auction. I'm calling that out, asking for bids. That can take place while you're selling alcohol for people as consuming at the event, because it's all being done under your special occasion license. Silent auctions can take place under have to take place under a special occasion license as well. However, you can do a silent auction where alcohol isn't being called out if somebody else is taking care of your on-premise sales. We allow for silent auctions to take place if you're using a caterer to maybe sell the alcohol to your attendees, or if you're at a venue who has a liquor license that's handling the alcohol. You can do a silent auction. You still need a special occasion license, but you can have somebody else selling the alcohol in that case, as long as it's silent. Alcohol that's won during the auction may not be consumed at the event and must be taken off premise with the winners. No auctioning trays of drinks. Sorry, I said that wrong. So if you're at a hotel or a restaurant and you're doing a live auction and somebody says, well, I want to donate a tray of drinks to be sold. I know you see it done, but it's illegal. You can't do that. You don't want to do that. It goes back to number 1, you can only get alcohol donated to you that is manufactured sealed bottles of alcohol. These are not drinks or trays of drinks are not manufactured sealed. They're not being donated to you by the manufacturer, and the restaurant and the hotel cannot donate alcohol to you, period. So just make sure that you're not accepting any trays of drinks to auction off. And then you, just like every other licensee, you must make sure that you're checking ID for people who are winning auctions, and make sure that they're 21 before you hand the alcohol over. And then we're going to talk very quickly about wine walks. Wine walks are very popular. They're coming back into fashion now that we're getting through the pandemic. And so we're getting a lot of applications for these. And we're just going to go over a couple of key factors. $60 per day per location. So each of your stops must have a special occasion license. Each location must have alcohol supplied by the nonprofit. So if you want to have a wine walk and you want to put a different winery at each location, you're buying that wine from the winery ahead of time, and then you're supplying that wine at the furniture store for, say, St. Michel to pour. So St. Michel will be at the furniture store, and the nonprofit will bring the wine, the St. Michel wine that they own, to the furniture store. And they will pour the alcohol for the wine walk at that location. And so if you want to include, say, a restaurant in your wine walk, that's fine, but you still have to supply the alcohol for them if you're going to sell a ticket to that stop, or they can supply their own alcohol. But I suggest that you call the Liquor and Cannabis Board and have a conversation about what that looks like for you. But the ticket sales that include alcohol samples must be sold by the nonprofit. Winery, breweries, and distilleries can pour their product, but they do not own the alcohol, like we talked about. In breweries, there needs to be at least 3 of them, like we talked about, and you may not have alcohol on the streets in between stops. Linda, am I out of time?
Yeah, I mean, if you just have a little bit more, go ahead. I just want to make sure we leave enough time for Brian.
Yeah, sorry. All right, what do we got next? Okay, so quickly, if you're using a caterer, I would check with us that they're a licensed liquor caterer first. Make sure that you're the one putting the nonprofit is the sponsoring the event in order to bring a liquor caterer in to sell the alcohol. But remember that this can be used in lieu of a special occasion. And then you go ahead. And then banquet permits are only for private events that are closed to the public, not advertised in any way, shape, or form, and it's a permit. In Washington State, we have liquor licenses and we have liquor permits. Liquor permits are for events that are not open to the public where alcohol is not being sold. Liquor licenses are for everything that's open and alcohol must be sold and that are events and businesses that are open to the public. And then Simply Done, no cannabis. At any of your nonprofit events, remember that it's still illegal federally. If you're federally funded at all, you don't want to mess with cannabis, but do know that you can get donations from cannabis retailers or producer processors if they want to donate to you. As far as money wise, that's up to you. They just cannot donate cannabis to you ever. And you cannot auction cannabis. You cannot give it away. You cannot have it at your event, and you cannot ever have it around an event with a liquor license or alcohol at it. So I do have a couple of slides on public safety, but I'm not going to go over those. You can take a look at these when we send them to Linda. If you have any questions about the public safety rules and laws, be sure to reach out to us and we'd be happy to share that. Let's hand it over to gambling quickly. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, and I did keep track of the questions, so we'll get to those after Brian.
Okay.
So Brian, you want to share your screen? Hopefully Brian's still with us.
Well, it might be liquor all the time.
Oh, here he comes. Here he comes.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I feel bad.
Is that sharing? Is that sharing, Linda?
No, that was Beth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not sharing. No, it's not sharing yet.
It's not sharing?
Not yet. Did you hit the green button at the bottom?
I did. Try it again.
Okay.
How about now?
No. Let's see.
I'm confused.
Yeah, we'll get Alan back work and see if he can help us with that. But if
Yeah,
you want
I'm here, Linda. Brian does have sharing capabilities as far as I can see, and we did test it earlier, so I don't know
Yeah,
what's
okay.
going on there.
Yeah, I'm going through the same process here. It shows I'm sharing.
Hmm.
Oh,
How about now?
now
There
we got it.
go. Yep.
We're good to go.
All right. That's probably operator error, I guess. Anyways, well, that was a pretty good presentation from the Liquor and Cannabis Board. I learned a lot anyways. And as the first slide shows, my name is Brian Lane. I'm a special agent. I'm working in the field operations division of the Gambling Commission. There's approximately 15 field agents spread across the state, and our main job is to make sure gambling is legal and honest out there. You know, we investigate illegal gambling activities, we investigate complaints, but for the most part, we're a great resource if you have questions about any proposed gambling activity or anything in the rules, regulations. We also will do on-site inspections to make sure that gambling was conducted according to the law. And I like to start my presentations out by giving you just a little bit of a brief overview of what gambling is in Washington. So first of all, everyone should understand that gambling is a state-regulated activity. So what happens a lot of times is somebody goes to Arizona or Texas in the summertime, they see something at an event that they want to bring back to Washington and conduct here. And you forget the laws in Texas, Arizona, Oregon, Idaho, they're different than the laws in Washington. So just because you see it somewhere else and it looks fun to do, It doesn't mean you can do it here. You need to check Washington's law. So what Washington's law allows you to do is to conduct those authorized activities. If it's not specifically authorized in law, you can't conduct it, only inside the borders of Washington. So if you have a question about something that you've seen in another state and you've never seen it in this state, it's probably because it's not an authorized activity in this state. Or it might be an authorized activity, but it has to be conducted in a little bit different manner. So to start out, Washington has a definition for gambling, and it has 3 elements. So I know at your events, you like to do some of these wine walls and maybe different type of events, but you got to ask yourself, is your activity that you want to do, does it have these 3 elements? Consideration means somebody has to pay somebody something. Usually that's money, but it doesn't have to be money. To take a chance, and that's a random chance. That means the operator or the participant can't dictate the outcome of the event. And then the carrot would be the prize. So anytime you have all 3 of those elements, you have gambling, most likely. There are a couple exceptions to that, but for this presentation, we're not going to get into the exceptions. So I would contrast that for a raffle and an auction. A raffle, you pay a price for a raffle ticket. That raffle ticket goes into a drawing bin. It's mixed up, randomly chosen out of a drawing bin, a winner. And then the organization presents the prize. That's gambling. An auction, on the other hand, you may still be bidding, paying a price to win a prize, whatever the thing you are bidding on, but there's no chance involved, because if you want that prize bad enough, you just bid high enough, and that eliminates the chance element, so it makes it non-gambling. We don't have anything to do with auctions for the most part. So that's the difference between a gambling activity and a non-gambling activity. The other activity that is often confused is like, I'll give an example of like a dart tournament. A dart tournament, you pay money to enter, right? To throw darts, and the high score wins a prize. Again, chance is eliminated. They insert skill into that equation. So again, yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with gambling. It's not a regulation or a regulated activity by the Gambling Commission. So I also like to give you the scope of what we saw in 2022 as far as the scope of the activity for nonprofit gambling. I only listed out the 3 major licensed gambling activities we have in the state for nonprofits. You can see the net receipts for raffles, by far the most, $15.1 million, bingo almost 5 million, and pull tabs about 10.5 million. And then the lower line, you can see the number of licenses we had active in 2022. And by far, you know, raffles at almost 800 licenses, by far the most popular nonprofit gambling activity in the state to raise money for their stated purpose. I listed the RCW there. That's the law that allows nonprofits to conduct gambling activities. And I want to stress that, yeah, it gives you the authorization to conduct those authorized activities, but you have to conduct it with the purpose of raising funds for your stated purposes. A lot of times there will be raffles out there, and organizations will get donated items valued at, let's just say, $5,000 retail value on a donated item, but their plan is only to sell $3,000 worth of tickets. If you get that donated item for $5,000, the expectation is you make $5,001 on your raffle to raise funds for your stated purpose. Or else, what's the point? Go out and sell the item retail value at $5,000, right? So we run into that a little bit on raffles, not too much, but sometimes. So does your organization qualify to operate gambling? Specifically raffles, I'll say, but it would go for any authorized nonprofit gambling activity. And there's really only 2 qualifications you have to remember, is that you had to be in existence for at least a year, and that you meet one of those qualifying purposes. I think the Liquor and Cannabis Board mentioned on their qualifying purposes. Ours are the same, but I typically state, because I can't remember all the qualifying purposes, I typically state if you're 501c3, you're going to qualify if you've been in existence for at least a year. If you're 501c6 or something other than a C3, you still might qualify. I just might have to have a little more clarifying information to make that decision. If you apply for a gambling license, I don't have to make that decision. You will have to submit documentation to our licensing department, and they'll go through whatever they require you to submit to make that determination. But if you call me up and you wanted to operate an unlicensed activity, I can give you that answer over the phone based on what you tell me about those two questions. So what can you do as an unlicensed activity? It's pretty simple. You can operate 2 unlicensed bingo, public raffles, or amusement games per year. Make no more than $5,000 combined gross receipts in a calendar year on that. This doesn't require a license. It doesn't require you to apply for anything. You can just go out and do those things. Again, it's among those 3 activities, but I would say 99% of the activities that are conducted unlicensed would be raffles. If you're selling to the public, you can only have 2 of those raffles in a year and make no more than $5,000. The other unlicensed activity would be members only raffles. This is separate from public raffles, where the public raffles are going out and selling to the general population. You know, you set up a ticket booth at the fair or in front of Safeway or something like that, and the general population is purchasing tickets. Those are usually longer raffles. They're designed to go over maybe days, weeks, months, and usually they're bigger ticket items, not always. Member-only raffles are where members of your organization are selling and buying tickets. You can have an unlimited number of those raffles per year. Again, you can make up to $5,000. You don't need to combine those 2 $5,000 totals. Each has a separate $5,000 total. So in those two types of raffles, you can make up to $10,000 without obtaining a license. You don't need to apply for anything. You don't have to report anything to us. You do have to keep some minimal records is all. The other thing with members only raffles, it's designed to be conducted in a very short time period. It's designed for your events. It's designed for meetings or a once a week raffle where you have a get together amongst members. Those kind of things so that's when you need to, you can conduct without a license. But there's also activities you can hold with a license. And there's only those 3 primary activities I showed on a couple previous slides. It's raffles, bingo, and pull tabs. Raffles and bingos, those 2 activities only nonprofits or charities can do. Pull tabs can be offered by nonprofits or commercial businesses. Pull tabs always require a license. Raffles and bingos, as shown in the previous slide, you can operate those in limited circumstances without a license or with a license. So there are a couple other activities that you can get a license for. One is amusement games. The other is a fundraising event that's considered casino nights. Casino nights have really dropped off in popularity since the advent of all the card rooms in the state now, but that's where you would hold blackjack. Casino nights, though, if you wanted to have a poker tournament, that was written into the casino night license or the fundraising events license. So you could hold a poker tournament under your fundraising event license if you wanted to. There's also a card room license out there, but you have to have social quarters for that. That would be like your Elks, Eagles, VFW clubs, where they have a bar and restaurant. So license fees, since we're only talking raffles, I only included the raffles fee currently. A raffle license initial fee is $65. That gets you a license for a 12-month period. Then once you have that license, as you conduct your activity, you will pay additional license fees as you go based on the gross receipts you generate from that activity. So with raffles, it's an initial fee of $65. Then you pay 3.38% as you go. You will have to report your activity on a quarterly basis. And when you report your activity on the quarterly basis, you will pay based on what you report to us. The maximum annual fee for raffles is $2,000. So if you generate $100,000 in gross gambling receipts from your raffles, you still only pay $2,000. I calculated it out, I think this morning, at about $55,000, you'll hit that $2,000 maximum license fee amount. I do know that licenses are gonna probably go up in the next 6 to 12 months. I think the proposal is that raffle licenses will no longer cost $65. They'll probably cost $70. That's just an FYI. So if you get your application in before that goes up, you only have to pay $65 instead of the $70. If you have licensing questions, the best place to go is to our online licensing tab. It has all the applications out there. It has additional licensing information. You can do everything online now. In fact, you're required to do everything online now. And you'll have to set up a secured Access Washington account with a Gambling Commission My account on it. So everything is conducted on your Gambling Commission My account through SAW. Most everybody's probably aware of what SAW is now. 2 or 3 years ago, it wasn't that known, but I think now it is. If you do have any questions on how to set those things up, our licensing department, they're whizzes at it. So yeah, probably not best to call me on that, but contact our licensing department. When to get a raffle license? Well, we covered that a little bit earlier. Is you can have 2 public raffles or make up to $5,000 in a year. If you want to exceed that, you have to obtain a raffle license. You have to obtain that raffle license before you exceed that. So you can't obtain that raffle license halfway through your 3rd public raffle or after you made $5,010 in a license year or in a year. You have to obtain it before you exceed those marks. The other times you have to always obtain a raffle license if you want to do one of the following activities combined with your raffles. That is, allow non-members to sell raffle tickets. If you want to have a joint raffle, you can do that, but both organizations need to have raffle licenses. If you're going to give out incentives for selling tickets, you can do that. Only non-cash incentives are allowed, but you have to have a raffle license. Discounting tickets, there's other requirements for that, and awarding firearms and alternative drawing formats. You always have to have a raffle license to conduct your activity in that manner. So what does that mean, I guess? Most of the time that means alternative drawing formats. And I kind of broke it down here into our general standard raffle. That's what's in the definition of a raffle. That's kind of that picture of those 2-part tickets. You know, you get 1 ticket to the participant, the other ticket goes into a drawing bin, and then somebody blindly reaches in after the tickets are all mixed and randomly pulls out the winners or winner or winners. That's our standard raffle. 50-50 raffles, I put that in here. That's no more than a standard raffle. The 50-50 amount defines how you award or what your prize will be, I guess. 50-50 is a cash prize instead of a merchandise prize, and it's 50% of your raffle gross receipts typically. That could be 40, 60, depending on whatever you want to do, but it's just a standard drawing with a cash prize, and you're defining how you're going to determine what the cash prize will be. Now we get to alternative drawing formats. This is, we see a lot of these and a lot of the nonprofit events and galas and those kind of things. They like to do anything out of the ordinary with raffles, and we can make a lot of things work as an alternative drawing formats, but you do have to understand that there always has got to be some sort of sequential ticket for an audit trail. So I just listed 5 of them. We have a whole bunch authorized on our webpage, or in the WAC rules, I should say. But I listed 5 of them. The first one there is a bucket raffle. It goes good with baskets. So what they do typically is people come to an event, they buy 20 raffle tickets. It's one series number. It's considered one raffle, but you have multiple drawings, and the participant gets to choose which bucket they want to put their tickets into. Each basket has a different raffle price, and each bucket will only be raffling off for a specific basket. The heads or tails, that one's an interesting one. I dealt with that about 10 years ago when it came into the state. And the person who brought it into the state, they operated it illegally to start with. They saw it happening in Arizona, so I use that as an example. It was fine in Arizona. They bring it into the state. It met all of the requirements of gambling, so it was a gambling activity. So we just turned it into a raffle to make it legal in this state. It's kind of a reverse raffle, which is an authorized alternative drawing format, where you're not picking a winner, but you're picking losers until you get to a winner, basically. Heads or tails raffle, the winner is chosen by the flip of a coin, and people who choose the correct flip, either heads or tails, they stay in the raffle. The people who predicted the incorrect flip, they are eliminated from the raffle until they get down to a single winner or multiple winners. Poker runs, they use a deck of cards to determine the winner. Duck races, they use a mock animal, usually floating down a body of water across the finish line to determine a raffle winner. And ball drops, those are usually balls dropped from a helicopter with corresponding ticket numbers on it. And the closest to a target usually is determined the winner. There are more, and if you have an idea, I would say, if you can fit it into one of those approved authorized alternative drawing format raffles, we can make it work. But just remember, you always have to have a raffle ticket. Your raffle ticket is the sequential number used to provide an audit trail for your raffle, basically. That's what we're going to come in to review for if there's any discrepancies in cash or anything like that. So all raffles have to have some type of a raffle ticket with a sequential number on it. Like duck races, they have duck adoption papers that are sequentially numbered. Poker runs, usually they have a poker run tally sheet. That's the sequential ticket number sheet. Raffle ticket requirements. Tickets must be consecutively numbered. You must include the cost per ticket. There needs to be date, time, and location of the drawing, the name of the sponsoring organization. Very important to put on your raffle tickets whether the winner must be present or not to win the prize. You must include a description of all the prizes and any other requirements or restrictions with a specific raffle. Now, if you're conducting public raffles, most of the time you're going to have that 2-part ticket with all that information on it. The example is kind of pictured at the bottom of this slide there. It's easy to get all that information on there. If you can't, you can also attach a, let's say, a pamphlet or a little extra sheet that shows all the information. With the public raffles also, and need not to be present, you also have to have a detachable stub that contains the person's name and their contact information. If you are a members only raffle, let's say, and it requires presence, you're conducting this, in a 2-hour block, you start selling tickets at 5, you're going to draw the winner at 7:30. All that information could be posted, instead of putting it on the ticket, could be posted at your selling station, I guess. You could also, I've seen where they would print out flyers with all the raffle information on it, and they put it at each banquet table. That would be okay if presence is required to win, and it's only conducted during that event. That would be fine also. The idea is just make sure the participants have all the information they need, so they know what they're winning, they know what it's going to cost, they know any restrictions to it and all that kind of stuff. what we're trying to prevent is to prevent, the nonprofit from maybe having a disgruntled person at your events, and that I don't want to have to come and investigate, and I do investigate any complaint I receive. So that's what we're trying to prevent. And if you fairly disclose everything, it'll probably prevent, 90% of any complaints that come in. Selling tickets, there are some restrictions on selling tickets. For one, tickets costs are a maximum of $100 per ticket. You can't go over that. There is an exception to that. There is a special raffle license out there that probably nobody in this seminar would qualify for, but those are called enhanced raffles, and only 1 or 2 organizations in the state qualify to conduct enhanced raffles. You can't give away free tickets or tickets as gifts. You can discount tickets. There are special requirements for it. When you discount tickets, you have to have special sequential numbers, and discounted tickets are made up in booklets so you can audit them, or so I can audit them. You can accept cash or credit cards, no IOU. So if somebody says, yeah, I'll take a ticket and pay you tomorrow, no, that doesn't really fly. Know that raffles is the only gambling activity that credit cards are allowed to be accepted for payment. You cannot use the internet, email, or the U.S. Postal Service to conduct your raffle. I'll say that again. You cannot use the internet, email, or U.S. Postal Service. I probably investigated at least 6 Facebook raffles last year. And although it might make it very convenient for you, it's against state law and probably against federal law to use the internet for any gambling activity. And the U.S. Postal Service, they have their laws that says that you can't conduct any gambling activity through the U.S. Postal Service. Now, you can advertise your activities through the internet or the Postal Service as long as it's legal, I guess, but you can't conduct it. And conducting means you can't have financial transactions for the purchase of tickets, and you can't send tickets through the internet and that kind of stuff. That's conducting the raffle. Youth under 18 may sell tickets if your primary stated purpose is for the benefit of youth, but in no circumstances may anyone under the age of 18 purchase raffle tickets. And this is a big one. Alcohol can only be a prize in members only raffles. That's where members sell and purchase tickets. Members only raffles do allow up to 25% guests, but it'll be up to each individual organization if they're allowing non-members to buy tickets in a members only raffle to justify that it meets that criteria, up to and below 25%. Now that can be done licensed or unlicensed with us. That's the raffle part. You must have a permit from the Liquor and Cannabis Board to raffle off a prize of alcohol. And you have to follow the Liquor and Cannabis Board's requirements for that prize. We say you can do it on a members only raffle, which is consistent, I believe, with the Liquor and Cannabis Board's regulations. And then the Liquor and Cannabis Board tells you how you have to do that if you're going to use alcohol as a prize. There is record keeping involved with all gambling activity. Unlicensed raffles, you have to keep records for 1 year. Licensed raffles, you have to keep it for 3 years. In both of those raffles, you have to maintain a monthly record for gross receipts, prizes paid, expenses, net income, and the use of the gambling proceeds for each gambling activity. If you're on licensed raffles, the thing you're going to have to be able to verify is how did you stay under that $5,000 limit, or how prove to us that you only offered 2 or less unlicensed public raffles. With licensed raffles or alternative drawing format raffles, you also will have additional record keeping, and we provide those records for you. They're out on our website. You can make your own records for those records though, but we provide samples of those records and how to complete them. The primary one is the raffle summary. All that does is summarize up what you did. It shows how many tickets you issued. It'll show you how much you made in your raffle based on the actual cash. Then it'll show an over and short. You can also put your winner information if you only have 1 or 2 winners in your raffles. You can put it right on your raffle summary. That'll go for each individual raffle. There's also a winner information sheet. If you have like 5 or 6 or 10 different raffle winners, you may want to use our raffle winner information sheet. There's a ticket distribution log. You only need to use that if you're giving out tickets to multiple people and they're going out and they're selling tickets at different locations, or they're responsible for a lot of tickets, let's say. If you only have 2, if you're at an event and you're selling tickets at a booth, or you only have 1 or 2 ticket sellers, you probably don't need the ticket distribution log. Merchandise inventory log is also a form we have that is required if you have multiple merchandise items you purchased for your raffles, you want to give out in your raffles, you have to be able to track that merchandise. Remember, if somebody donates a prize to you, let's say they donate a trip to Hawaii, they donate it to the organization. They can't donate it to a raffle. A raffle's not an entity, but they can donate it to an organization. You need to be accountable for that prize. And then you choose to put it on your raffle at that time. That's a donated item to the organization. That's why in my earlier example, someone had donated a car where it was valued at $10,000. I remember this, and it was valued at $10,000, but they only wanted to sell $5,000 worth of tickets. Why not just go out and sell that donated item? The person can't donate to a raffle, so they donate to an organization. That becomes property of the organization. Just go out and sell the item for what it's worth. Don't try to raffle it off and go through all of this in order to do that. The other thing, once you obtain a license, you are required to report to us on a quarterly basis. Now, I realize if you obtain a license for one event that you have annually and you only conduct your raffle during the event, you're only going to have raffle receipts to report in 1 quarter probably. You still have to report in all those quarters you didn't have raffle activity, but just report 0 because we don't know that you don't. Remember, your license is good for a 12-month period. If you want to have a raffle 1 a month or once a year, that license allows you to have as many raffles as you want during that 12-month period, or as few raffles as you want in that 12-month period. And then I like to kind of circle back around and just kind of highlight the key points that I would like to stress anyway. One is make sure you know the difference between unlicensed and licensed raffles. That is very easy to keep apart. Remember that $5,000 amount, anything under $5,000 for members only raffles. You don't have to obtain a raffle license. You don't have to tell us about it. You don't have to report anything to us. And anything under 2 public raffles and $5,000, again, unlicensed, versus anything with an alternative drawing format exceeding $5,000, discounting tickets, having non-members sell tickets, giving incentives to people selling tickets. You always have to have a raffle license. Again, stress this because this happens so often. May not conduct gambling raffles over the internet or through the mail. Alcohol as a prize is only members only. Obtain a raffle permit from the Liquor and Cannabis Board before you do that. Maintain your records. And if you're unsure about anything, speak to a special agent and we can help you through it. We are really there to help you succeed at whatever you want to do as long as it's legal and honest. And that's pretty much all I had. There's some contact information for our licensing department and our headquarters phone number. If you have a licensing question, they're definitely the best people to go to. And if you have an operational question, there's my contact information. I can probably get you in contact with the local agent that's responsible for your organization in your area. So yeah, please reach out and ask any questions.
Great. Thanks,
Okay.
Brian. Just quickly, I did have a couple questions pop up for you. And I think you kind of answered them in a later slide, but for selling raffle tickets, does that mean volunteers can sell raffle tickets? Can youth sell raffle tickets? Or do they have to be members of the organization?
Well, again, if it's a members only raffle, they have to be members of the organization only.
Yeah, most nonprofits aren't though, right? Yeah.
Well, in these meetings, that's true, but we have a lot of nonprofits that conduct a lot of gambling activities, like the clubs, the Elks, Eagles, American Legion. Most of theirs are members.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you're doing a public raffle and you obtain a license, you can have volunteers sell
Great.
tickets.
Yeah. And then there's the unlicensed and the licensed. Somebody wanted to know, can't they just use the basic raffle tickets that come in the rolls? And those are for like the drawing type raffles. They can use those.
Sure.
The raffle tickets that you need to have in sequential order and have all that information and maintain all those records is different than a drawing raffle, correct?
No, not really. You can use just a 2-part raffle ticket that you buy at Staples. You can use that at any raffle. All raffles should have a sequential number ticket, all raffles.
Mm-hmm.
So that's your audit trail for any raffle. So you can use that 2-part ticket. It just depends on what raffle you're offering, what additional information you've got to have. But yeah, the 2-part ticket's fine. But if you're selling to the general public and presence is not required, then you got to have the information for to contact the winner and that kind of stuff. And you would probably present them with a flyer. It's okay to have a flyer to go with those tickets. If they don't want the flyer, that's on them, but you have to be able to offer them that information. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, and we did capture all the other questions in the chat. And I know that Beth has been replying to some of those, but I don't know that everybody has been following the chat. So we're going to capture all that. But I just wanted to throw out, Elizabeth, if you're still on, a couple questions for you. Key differences if your event is at a casino versus maybe a hotel.
So there is really no difference because a casino's liquor license has a liquor license just like a hotel does. Okay. So there's not going to be any difference between the two. Either you're going in with a special occasion license and bringing in your own alcohol to sell to your folks, or you're having them sell the alcohol and you're not bringing your own alcohol. But it's got to be one or the other. Either somebody else is going to sell for you, or you're going to use a special occasion and sell yourself.
Okay. At some events, we see that a donor has donated wine and it's placed on tables to be served. What are the rules around that?
So if you're holding an event that's been advertised to the public, alcohol cannot be given away free of charge. That's illegal. You have to sell every ounce of alcohol that you hand to somebody at a public event, and you have to have a license to do so. So if a donor wants to donate alcohol for a nonprofit to put on tables at an event, then they need to donate it with a procurement form to the nonprofit, who is then going to sell it at their event. So remember that donated alcohol can never be given away free of charge to anybody. The only reason we allow 501c3s and 501c6s to get donated alcohol in the state of Washington is to sell it for their charity, never to give it away free to somebody. It's to make money for your charity.
Okay. What if it's included in your ticket price?
Then you're selling it. So it's great.
So, yeah. So they can, yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Absolutely.
So they can advertise your dinner and wine is your ticket price. And that way you can put the donated wine on the table for them to enjoy.
Right. So each ticket's got to include the alcohol that that person's going to get, right? So what
Yeah.
you have to be careful of is selling a ticket for, $20 each to each person. That includes the meal and overhead and the alcohol, and then only have one person at that table drink the whole bottle of wine. Because that person then didn't pay for the wine that because everybody say was allotted 2 drinks. Right.
Mhm.
And so if you sit down at a table and nobody else drinks except for that one person, then you kind of have an issue. We're probably not going to ding you for that, but if we happen to be at the event, we're going to probably wonder why only one person is drinking and whether the alcohol was sold at wholesale cost or above. So you just got to be careful when you put it on the table to make sure that it's actually being sold.
Yeah, okay. Let's see what some other, I know, like I said, I know that you answered a lot of them in the email. You talked about a wine wall, how we do a wine wall.
Yeah, so the same thing goes for a wine wall or a ring toss. Remember that you have to do this. There's no other license or permit that I can give you in order for you to do these activities, right? It's like fitting a square peg into a round hole. So the only way that we can allow you to do this legally is under the special occasion license and consider it a sale of alcohol. So if you're doing a wine wall or a ring toss, you have to sell those rings. If you have a bottle that's worth $50 in that ring toss, then each of those rings got to cost you got to charge $50 for them. Because if I get that $50 bottle of wine and I only paid $5 for that ring, now the nonprofit's broken the law because they're selling alcohol for below cost.
Got it.
So, you have the chance of making a lot of money by not putting anything more than a $20 bottle in your thing and selling all your tickets for $20, or sometimes it's just not beneficial.
Sure. So somebody asked, and I know this happens every once in a while too. Some nonprofits have a free event. There's no charge to come. So if they're offering a free event, they can't give any alcohol away, correct?
Absolutely correct.
Mhm.
So they can have a free event and they can get a special occasion license for the event so that they can sell alcohol at the event by the glass.
But not free. Yeah.
Not free.
Yeah. Okay.
Remember that we don't allow, it's in RCW that you cannot advertise or sell for below cost, which means that we all know that a winery can give away a free sample of wine, right? But you're never going to see that advertised anywhere. It never says on the outside of a winery, free wine.
Yeah. Okay. I think that was the high points. And again, we'll capture all the questions and answers that were in the chat room, and we'll send an email out to everybody who was registered today, along with the slides from both the alcohol and cannabis. And then Brian, if you want to send me your slides, we'll send those out also. I think the best thing to note here was these guys are approachable. You can reach out to them or their departments if you have any question on whether you're doing something that's you should be doing or not. Having attended a lot of events, I think a lot of you are doing all the right things, but it's always nice to have these refreshers. So I don't see any other questions. So Beth, Brian, everybody that came, thank you so much. I think that this was very helpful, beneficial for all of us today. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye-bye.